the question.
What is normal? What is normal to you?
To me,
Yeah.
basically anything out of character that other people around me don't normally behave. But I also know that sometimes normal is not okay.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, I feel like I have enough critical thinking skills to kind of like realize certain things aren't normal.
Well, with what you just said, I think it kind of lays it out. It's based on where you're at, your surroundings, right?
Yeah.
If it's often that someone or people in that same social group have a habit and it's often that they do it, it's going to be normal for other people to do it as well. And I feel like through that mentality, we can get into some really weird situations because we deceive ourselves and we tell ourselves because everyone around us is doing it, we can partake, right? We can do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like for us, because we had, we have ADHD and with ADHD, you're trying to find the logic and what people are trying to teach you. And sometimes you can't really question it because they don't question it. But you drive yourself insane questioning it because you think like, how is this normal with everyone else? But to me, it screams like, this is not okay.
Yeah. Well, that gets me thinking about just something I've noticed on TikTok and different social media apps when women post about a weird interaction they had with a guy that reached out. It seems like it's actually a very normal thing for a lot of guys to be like if they're the ones reaching out and trying to get into their DMs and then they're denied, they get like upset, angry, and like even like threats of violence, and they start turning 180, and it's kind of crazy. I've seen so many instances now that I feel like that's actually, it makes me feel like it's normal for a lot of guys when it really should not be normal.
No, and it isn't. Well, it isn't something that we like to see, but it is something common as women that we see. And like I guess for example, what you and I think we were maybe like a few months in or like a year in, and I went to play Pokemon Go by myself at the park.
Oh yeah.
And there was that one dude I interacted with because I thought he was friendly. No big deal. I'm like, he seems cool.
I got a little jealous, and I might have mentioned it anyways.
No, and that's normal, but you weren't like aggressive. You weren't like, you can't talk to him. And even I was just kind of like, okay, let's see. I'll feel him out if he's even like a person who can be a friend, you know? And then there was a point where he would comment on one of our pictures. He'd be like, is that your brother? Like after I've already like told him like I'm engaged or I'm with someone, and you can be my friend, you can't talk to me, but you can't be talking to me about my partner like that and thinking that it's okay, because obviously if the only thing he can pick on is the appearance and try to get under my skin, clearly he has nothing good to say about our relationship, or like he doesn't even know me. Because it's like, if you were listening when I told you why I liked my partner, why I was engaged to them, you would know that would be like, that's really stupid to pick on. Like, what the fuck?
Oh man, I almost like imagine, like, that's such a bold move too. Like, I almost imagine it coming from someone that maybe has a lot of money or has a lot of influence, and then they're trying to flex, being like, oh, is that, like, not to say that there's any way that anyone should even make that, but if, for example, it was someone in that position trying to say something like that,
yeah,
then it almost makes a little more sense, because they're at least trying. I don't know. That's a weird statement too. I feel like I don't know. Something about like the male psyche is so weird, because a lot of the things we talk about, like, I kind of resonate with them, although I've never partaked, if that makes sense. So I get a lot of the anger in terms of being rejected, or even of having delusions of like them not really having, like, oh yeah, I've been told before that they're with someone and I don't really get it, so I just kind of like keep messaging. I've never gone violent, and I've never like even like lied or been like an asshole about it, but to that extent, like, I can understand where some guys come from, but then I don't understand what lets them think it's okay to take it over the edge like a lot of people do.
A lot of times it's like men who do that, they have like this twisted idea that like, oh, obviously she's with an asshole, so I'm gonna act like an asshole, so maybe she'll like, so I can like piss her off and make her think of me. And then the more I think make her think of me and pissing her off, the more likely she is to talk to me. And the thing with that though, and I do feel like it's kind of true for some women who aren't like in like stable, good, healthy relationships, like if their man really is toxic, it's like you're probably going to lean towards someone else who's even worse, or if not at that level, to kind of distract you from the fact that you made a bad decision with the first guy in the first place. So I can see that happening. But the twisted thing there is that you're in a bad relationship and I wasn't,
Yeah, you're
in this case.
I guess that's what I'm forgetting of that. Like it's something that happened to you. I'm almost analyzing it from like an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do that cuz like that I would be like I was probably extremely upset and I just tried to be like chill about the whole situation.
Yeah.
But that remains that I don't know if like it's jumping off topic, but that reminds me a lot of when we first met. It's something I wanted to mention anyways, but when we first met, we used to have a lot more discipline. Like in terms of, so I don't know why I'm jumping around, but I don't know. To me, it seems like you can build up discipline and then sometimes you kind of let go of it for a bit. And then it's a lot harder to come back in after you've already kind of done it once. I don't know if that makes sense.
By discipline, you mean by the gym when we were
Well,
hanging out, right?
Yeah. I guess that's a very vague concept, but because it applies to so many different things. But I do know I am talking about when we used to go to the gym. When we first met, we were both kind of interested in it. I know you were very encouraging of going to the gym, and I had already lost a lot of weight without necessarily going to the gym too much.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like that time. And I think that was something that helped out a lot in terms of being disciplined in general. So the exercise was like what triggered it, but then like after that we were a lot more disciplined about a lot of things, I feel like.
Yeah, I think we were pretty like strict on ourselves on like things we did and didn't want to do in our relationship. And like, with the gym, I was comfortable at the gym, but you were new in a way. And like you were new to like the type of training I was used to,
I'm a baby.
Yeah.
In the gym. I mean, I needed to be like watched over at first.
Burpees.
Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of burpees.
That was his punishment.
I would act bratty, just because it kind of goes back to the whole, what I had mentioned before about just part of me identifies a lot with the actions of a lot of guys because I could see myself getting to that point, even if I don't get to that point, or even if I don't even come close. But that was one of those instances where I started realizing I had way more issues than I even thought I did, where when you were giving me direction and I couldn't do it properly, I would just get angry and just start acting like a baby. And you were really good about it. You would put me to do burpees. You're like, all right, every time we had a system set up. But in those moments, it's when I started realizing that part of me was still just doing that because I didn't really want to be told what to do by a woman. And that's really hard to say. Like just saying it right now, I don't even want to admit that it's true.
No, and it's something I observed early on, but then I'm like, if we're going to be partners, you're going to have to get used to the concept of being told what to do regardless of the person.
Exactly. And I think that's something I realized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something I realized very quickly. But which also helped my discipline. You were able to help me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it also helped that I was like experienced in the gym strength wise, that you were kind of like, I guess if she can do it, I guess I have to do it.
I mean, there's some things like I don't know how you do deadlifts. I can't. I mean, I can do Romanian deadlifts all day, but when you do deadlifts, something about my back just like feels so off, and I get like a little. I'll be honest, I get scared when I do deadlifts. So then I take it easy, but
yeah.
I do want to get back to the gym, which is something you've been doing in the last, week or so?
Mm-hmm.
Which has been good.
Yeah, so
How's it been going, by the way? Because in the last episode you mentioned you stayed away
Changing.
for changing, staying away from a certain substance.
Yeah, so I've been doing pretty okay in the week. I have noticed like a difference in my mood and also like feeling like I was depressed in a way, but I didn't know that it would trigger like that type of anxiety that I was kind of like feeling all the time, the paranoia. And the paranoia was like the worst part about it because I would think that it was my own thoughts and it was something that, oh, this is what I'm observing at work. And I think everyone here hates me and is talking about every little thing that I'm doing
Mm.
wrong. And like it's bad enough that that happens before like my menstrual cycle happens or my period. But to have it happen like just because of that substance, like looking back at it, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do that every single day now. I'm not gonna be doing that. And like because of that change in my mood, now I'm like, okay, this is a little more clarity. It's easier to identify the depressive moods now and easier to identify when I'm like triggered or when I'm losing it,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because, I mean, I'm in a similar position, right? And I'm trying to limit it more and more. Um, and as you're saying that, a lot of the things that you're mentioning are things I've been feeling, but I don't know how to verbalize. I don't know how to actually put it into words. Just this feeling of not knowing my moods. Like I go through a lot of different moods, but it always feels the same. And like I'm starting to not. I started feeling like, is this anger or am I sad or am I bored? Am I excited to do something or am I intimidated? Like a lot of things where I start acting out and I don't know exactly why. And as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of like something that might help,
Yeah.
especially with ADHD. And I don't know. I've been told by my family that I'm bipolar my whole life. I don't actually think I am, but I do feel like since I've struggled with anger management issues, I do have maybe something other than ADHD going on, and I would want to find out more and work on it. But
I used to think you had like almost like a defiance disorder where you're just kind of like, no, I don't want to do that because you told me to do it.
that sounds like me.
Yeah,
That's like, but that sounds like my entire family. I don't
exactly.
say it in a bad way. Just literally, my nephew. Every time that, even if he's like trying to figure something out, if you're like, oh, this is how you do it, he's like, no, yo, me. He's like very adamant about.
Wanting to be independent of what he's doing,
Yeah.
regardless of it's wrong or right. And I feel like that's just, unfortunately the attitude. But you're with what I've told you and like giving you instructions, you've been smoother about it now because you're like now realizing like I don't have to contradict everything, do I? I don't have to fight. I'm like,
Things could be different.
you're like, the ding ding bell doesn't have to go off in my head every time that someone tells me what to do.
We're ready to
Like, ding,
fight.
ding, ding. And you gotten better at it, but I do feel like maybe you do have some sort of like mood issue there. But I feel like the fact that your parents gaslighted you into thinking that you had bipolar disorder, the more you leaned into the idea and you just kind of like accepted,
Well,
instead
for a
of,
long time, I did just accept it.
yeah,
I didn't know what that meant. Like now, when I think of what I've seen of people that actually deal with bipolar disorder, um, I don't think I do have exactly what they have because it seems a little more intense in a way, like
yeah.
psychologically. So, and if I do have some form of it, then I'm probably very lucky because even through all the stuff that I go through, I feel like I have a pretty generally good grasp and like don't lash out too much. Like you said, I've gotten a lot better, but
Yeah, and only because you were taken out of your environment for a certain time. Imagine if you were still in it.
yeah.
Like, if I hadn't been out of my parents' house, like, since we got married, I wouldn't have really been diagnosed with ADHD. I wouldn't have taken the plunge. I probably would have been, like, still accepting that I was just dumb and unmotivated and lazy, like my parents always told me to do, even though I was always, like, a people pleaser, wanting to do everything right. But looking back at it, I'm like, I have a lot of anxiety when I'm around my family, and because of the way I was led to grow up, like I look at myself now and I'm like I like can sort of identify the thoughts that are like more anxiety and paranoia than my own thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
I definitely agree with that too. I'm starting to be able to identify those. Um, but the weird part for me is that I'm starting to identify them by how powerful they seem, because the most powerful instincts I just kind of naturally do, and those happen to be some of my most powerful instincts to just act in that way. So then when I'm able to just like hold it in and like think about it for enough time to let that raw like dumb angry power like diminish a little bit, then I start seeing, I'm like, oh no, this isn't what I should be doing, and I can actually do the next thing that I should do. And then if I acted in any kind of way, like I'll probably be very apologetic. And that's the one thing people do know a lot about me, is that I say sorry for everything. And I think like even when I wasn't mean to people, I would just say sorry, because I just was always saying it in general, so I just got so used to saying it all the time.
Yeah. And the thing is that we always constantly feel bad. We're always going to constantly be sorry about something. Like me, I always think I'm an inconvenience. Like I always think that just me going up to someone and saying hi is like the biggest thing for me. And like I'm not shy to do it, but my brain tells me like if they don't say hi back, or if they don't even like acknowledge you or start like a real conversation, then they fucking hate you. So you tried your best and they're nice enough to not even have smacked you in the face for bothering them.
Wow.
That's my brain constantly telling me that. Like the fact that, and I grew up in,
Sorry.
in a like
Just
in
laughing.
like a toxic Latino relationship community around me. Like my parents' relationship was like healthy compared to everyone else around me.
It seems that way, honestly.
Everyone else's parents are children of divorce, which, I will say this, if you're thinking about divorcing or breaking up, go ahead. Don't do it for the kids. They know that you hate each other. And I've
Yeah.
met so many children like that who are just like, I'm glad my parents broke up.
To that, I agree too. I don't want to like distract from the original point, but I
Yeah.
want to mention real quick, as someone that has for a long time when I was a teenager just thought like, why don't you guys divorce already? I'm grateful my parents did stay together, because I mean their circumstances were really different. They were kind of like intertwined in a way. Most relationships are. Um, if my parents had divorced at one point, they were able to be like fully functioning apart from each other and like financially stable for to live alone. I think they probably would be very happy. Honestly, like I don't think that they would be, like, not to say they're not happy now, but I think in general that's what you're saying is so true, because some kids late just end up not even having respect for their parents, and to some extent with like fighting and all this stuff going on. I know I went through that, and I feel like I'm better now, and I've been able to accept a lot of the stuff that happened, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that should have even happened. Maybe it would have been better if that was just a clean break.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I agree. Like a lot of people were like, I was friends with people who happen to be children of divorce, and they would be like, yeah, it's nice now compared to back then.
Yeah.
I was always like, aren't you sad your parents like broke up? Because I was like in that mindset of like, oh, parents
Need to stay
need to
together.
stay together. I had that assumption, but then like hearing them say that, and then there were moments where my parents would be like arguing, and they wouldn't talk for days. I would just be like, what's the purpose? Like you're just gonna spend the next 30 years doing this shit, and
Yeah.
you're involving us.
I saw that's a lot of my thought process too. I was just like, okay, so I'm not having kids. I don't want a wife,
Yeah,
because this is
that's
what
what I
this
was
is
like.
what awaits, right?
I'm like with my friends, if I have a discussion with them and then, I'll talk to them later and I'll apologize if something went wrong. It's all good. But if it's in a relationship, from what I've seen and grown up with, it's like the end of the world with them, or it's like, oh no, I have to go get drunk and like express myself with my friends. But you can't do that with your partner. Like you can't express to them sober about how you really fucking feel. Like,
Yeah. That's a lot of the things you say trigger like little memories, and that's I keep wanting to get lost in these memories. Although I was interested in what you were saying before, before I mentioned the well, before you mentioned about children of divorce. I'm trying to remember what it was, but
I think it was like insecurities and like how people around me in the relationships I've been around. Like you know, damn it, I lost my train of thought.
it's okay. I did want to ask you too because we had a weird transition into discipline, but it gets me thinking because the reason I wanted to mention it was because I've seen you like this week without having to be on weed, like take like some action in a way. Like you kind of forced your hand and you had to take some action and you started going to the gym. And I was gonna ask you how that's been, like
Mm.
doing both of them, like kind of doing the gym and not having weed in the same week.
Mm.
How's that mix been, or how does it treated you?
It's been all right just cuz the clarity I mentioned before, it's been a lot better to identify the things that are triggering me or the
Hmm.
things that are like bothersome, and I'm like taking time to analyze them, and I'm like, this really shouldn't bother me, or like this really shouldn't be my thought process. I should, yeah, take it as criticism if it is something that's criticism wise, but
And
some things
it's
are not.
And criticism comes in all forms. I mean, it sounds super cliche, but constructive criticism is the criticism I'm looking to get, right?
Hmm.
I'm only looking to hear how this could be made better. And if it's subjective, then like I almost don't want to hear it in a way. But if it's something that I can like, hey, you're not doing this for your brand or whatever, like I'm like, oh yeah, that's something we should be doing. Thanks for bringing it up. I appreciate that so much, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's something like, oh, you guys are lame and you guys don't know what you're doing, it's like, well,
Suck my dick.
that's that's just your opinion, bro. And cool, you could say it, but I also don't have to read that shit, and that's it, you know.
Yeah. And that takes me back to like what we were talking about, like, guys sliding into the DMs.
Yeah.
Cause like, if those people, who are saying like, oh, this is lame or this is bullshit, like it's like maybe it's the humbling thing you needed and you're offended that this turned out the way that it didn't turn out in your head.
Oh, that sounds so right.
Cause like it's like trolls sometimes. Like I remember leaving a comment on a stupid TikTok about like how to resolve, certain issues. It doesn't mean it's the only solution.
Yeah.
But people were asking me, like bros in the comments were like asking me for like, what can you do to support that? Or like, why do you want universal healthcare? Don't even mention Europe. And it's like, no. Like the fact that you're ready to argue before you're ready to receive the message, and like, it's like you're missing a few steps in the thought process, my friend. Like, it's kind of like that thing my aunt was saying the other day about like, oh, we should live our life, like um kind of like eating whatever you wanted to,
Oh,
but
like
like
life's short. We
life
gotta,
short,
yeah.
and like for me it's like, no, life is long, life is exhausting, and the fact that I made it to 28 tells me that life is longer than what I wanted it to be. I thought I was gonna
Oh,
die by like 21 or 23.
yeah. I always thought like 27 or 20. Yeah, for some reason, when 27 came up, I think it's because I play music and there's that whole superstition of that number being bad for famous musicians. I wasn't famous. Fuck. But no, but I always had that same fear, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a point, like how I saw it, like I took some time to realize like, oh, I really just thought that that was the end of the time that I thought I would be successful at, or that I thought I would be good enough to die then,
Mm.
And I look back at it, I'm like, I wasn't good enough to die, and I'm still not dying yet, unfortunately, like I'm still here, and you know, I'm glad to be here, and you know how hard it is for me to accept that, based on how I've always like mentally thought of life.
Yeah. I know, I mean, I don't want people to think that you don't love and you don't feel love and that you don't, all these different emotions associated with great things in life. I don't want them to think that you don't value them and you don't see them or feel them, as well. But like it's true. Like you have a predisposition for just very not just to get like super technical, but like very dark, intrusive thoughts and it definitely takes a toll on you.
No, yeah. And so my brain always told me, or like my thoughts and my consciousness is always telling me, like, you know, you could die any day, so why live life making others miserable? And then I think that my existence is such a bother to everyone that I think, like, well, if I'm such a bother, why am I even alive? What's the purpose of
Mm.
me being here if I'm such an inconvenience? And then so when people tell me, like, oh, you should appreciate life, life is here for you, your family gave you everything, they love you, they adore you,
The way
like,
you
you
say
have
that.
nothing to complain about, you never struggled in your life. And to me, it's like, thank you. I know how privileged I am. And now I feel like a fucking monster for not
Yeah.
saying that during my depressive episode where I'm telling you why I'm sad or why I'm like fucked up. And it's like, it's exactly that thought process that makes us think like, oh, there's nothing to complain about. And the thing is that there's so much to complain about. There's so much going on in the world that it's signaling little alarms in our brains and body that's like, something ain't right.
Yeah.
Like my
I mean,
alcoholism. Sorry.
no, I mean, I just wanted to say, like, and it's not even the, like, there's so many things way, way out of our control, like war and climate change and like and all these younger people are way more woke too. They're way more, well, also they're like, I don't want to say woke. They have way more access to information than we did when we were their age. So like that on top of this social construct of beauty, like for all, like it affects guys and girls like just as much, like, boys and girls just as much. And I feel like that's something that a lot of older people don't take into account, like this hyper version of information gathering that like children are going through these days. Like, what do you expect? Like, do we expect kids to not have like some kind of like psychological issues with how the world is? Like, I have psychological issues with how the world is. I don't know if they all came from my genetics. I feel like a lot of them, because of just my own family upbringing, might have started in that realm. I don't know much about it, to be honest. You know more about it than I do in terms of things that can trigger certain things.
Yeah, I feel like the way our parents stressed, back then, and because they didn't deal with it, and because they didn't, like, take the time to say, like, we don't have to be on survival mode. We're all right. We're okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can still be, like, you know, in survival mode in terms of how we're working, but we need to acknowledge that the way we carry our feelings is going to affect our kids much more than we think. And then I feel like
Like they expect us to be on survival mode.
as
Like
well.
they put that on. I do see that a lot with even friends in my life with their children, and I've had people reach out and just say like, I know I need to change, but I don't know how, and I feel bad about it. And I'm like, hey, as long as like eventually the change will come, just stay open to it. Doesn't have to happen overnight.
Yeah, and with that, it's like, for example, the way my mom raised us and my dad, it's like I know they definitely didn't. They still have stress, from like way back then. And the thing I've learned from other people is that stress does carry on to your kids, apparently genetically,
Yeah.
where it's like generational trauma. Basically, like you don't know why you're reacting a certain way towards something, like for example, my grandpa, who was an alcoholic, like the town's alcoholic, he was traveling all around the pueblo, apparently, he was drinking rubbing alcohol, mouthwash, like he was looking for it, he needed it. And like he was abusive towards my grandma, like, and my mom had to live around that. And in addition to that, she had to take care of my grandma's kids. And the fact that my grandma wasn't an active mother in their lives, my parents, my mom and her siblings basically raised themselves into like being bigger adults than their parents. And and to this day I see them loyal to my grandparents, and I'm almost like, okay, that's hard for me to see because I see like the feelings that my grandma must have felt going through that abuse.
Yeah.
In addition to like the lack of care given to my own mom. Like how could my mom known what a mom needed to give if her mom didn't need it give it to her? So she learned motherly things from her grandma and from other moms of like what does help and what works with a child, because she had to raise my grandma's kids, and my grandma had 11 kids, 12. And so it's like, how can I expect my mother to be the amazing mother that we all deserve to have without her own mother having put in that work for her? So it feels like, if your mother doesn't put in that work for you, it feels like you're not even worth or deserving of a good mother because your mother didn't think they needed those skills to do that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they don't know. And I can't blame them all the time, but I can like take the time myself to raise myself better and remind myself like of my triggers and my anxieties. It's like, oh, when this happened when I was a kid, my mother didn't do this thing because she didn't know how. And she didn't know how to handle this properly. So now I'm going to take the time to like heal this little situation myself. So that when it does come up again, or if my mother mentions it, I can just tell her like, this is what we're actually going to do. What you did back then, I get it. That's what you had to do. But this is what we're doing now. And this is necessary change. And although you think I turned out all right, I didn't. My alcoholism is a clear signal that I didn't handle life very well. So, like, it's necessary to change. But at the same time, I would want my mom to change, and I would want to have that conversation with her to be like, this is how I felt as a kid, and this is how you treated me, and just so you know, I'm not going to do that with my kid. But I want you to be part of the family when I do this. So can you work with me with this? Yeah. I'm still not ready for that conversation, and I'm probably not going to have it with her in a long time. But when it comes to it, I feel like I'm going to be like a nervous wreck. Like I'm going to be crying. I'm going to be like ugly crying.
No, you can't ugly cry.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I've seen it once, I think. Just once.
Yeah, you've seen me cry a lot. And so, like, since I've been out of my parents' house, like, I didn't realize how unhealthy and how I was holding in so much by being the quiet kid that my parents, like, enjoyed me being around me. And I feel like they did want to, like, talk to me and converse with me. But I couldn't give it back to them because when I was a kid, I wasn't like sure if I could even have that conversation, because everything was all about like wanting to have the house clean and also like taking care of my brother, but also like school and like how bad I was at school. Like that's all I could focus on throughout my days. It's like, although I could be having fun in the playground, I still knew for a fact I was a failure at school, and I had to return to that. So I would be sad. I would be pre-sad at the playground where my parents took me after school, because I knew I had to return to school the next day. And I knew I was bad at school. And my teachers hated me, and everyone in my classroom, like...
Did you get picked on at all?
I feel like I was, but I was picked on enough by the teachers that everyone probably felt bad for me.
Oh.
Or they just like, no, es pendeja. Like, I don't want to talk to her.
Oh, did someone ever actually say that? Or were you just kind of like...
Anxiety.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But like, I feel like because my parents thought that, or that my siblings would feel bad for me for being so dumb, that I thought everyone else had those thoughts about me. Or the way my parents would talk to me about making like big decisions or talk about things that like happen around me. They're like, no, your mind's too sensitive for that. So relax. Or like my parents would always say that, es que tu cabeza no está muy madura para...
come on.
And I hated that because I'm like, I would be upset in my head talking to myself saying like, I thought about killing myself as a 5-year-old, and I thought about blood and murder, and like and I've seen people being addicts on the street just shooting up, and like how worse can it get?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't get much worse. But what would have happened if you had opened up like that, do you think, at that age?
I feel like they would have taken me to church or therapy.
Yeah, it probably would have been church first.
Yeah.
Like, and oh man, that would have been such a...
Or like they would have
nightmare.
sent me to someone else's house, or they would have been talking on the phone about me before talking to me, saying like, me, like my daughter, she's just really like not doing well. Like I don't know how
Yeah,
to
that makes it
get her.
in
Like
my mind, that makes it so much worse when, like,
absolutely worse.
someone's going through something like that and you're announcing it to other people, just, like,
Yeah.
even if you don't know how to help them cope with it, just be there for them if they need you. You don't even have to push it, like, but I don't think, like, surrounding them with other people that just found out that they're going through that is gonna help them.
Yeah, or like, here's like a very like um very PG example. Like when I turned vegetarian,
Mhm.
my dad, like, he was not happy with me at all. He was just like,
He cooks a good steak, I could see why, I'm just saying.
no, and that's the thing. It was like the biggest decision I made at that time, but I was sticking to it because I'm like, the shame of eating animals was bigger than the shame where my parents were given to me as an immigrant, as a child of immigrants, like they were like, you don't appreciate the food I gave you. Like, how can you
Oh,
not
yeah.
eat this food? Like, I used to beg for this kind of food and you're just gonna deny it. And like, and I would like try to find some logic there into the argument. I'm like, but that means you have more meat for you. You have one less person to feed that expensive meat to. Like, why are you upset?
I'm costing you less money.
I'm like, I just don't want to eat it because I feel bad. Like, if they had just been like, oh, yeah, we support you, no big deal, I wouldn't have thrown my tantrum,
What was it, a
my
decade-long
capricho.
tantrum?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I probably would have done it for like maybe 2 or 3 years at the most if they had been like super supportive and ecstatic, or at least been like, okay, we understand. We're here for you. No big deal. But the fact that they went the other way, it just motivated me more to want to do it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, they hate me for making this decision, even though I know I should want to practice it and I should want to know why I'm right. And it taught me a lot about arguing and how people like present their arguments. It's like you present your argument with the thing that personally offended you first before you actually tell me like you're going to be malnourished, you're not educated on like the real things that are causing like these horrible things to happen with animals. People are fucked up and that's why they're torturing animals in this specific way, even though there's more humane ways to like kill them or to consume animals. They could have presented all of that, but no, it was like, you hate me. You hate me and our family and what we provide for you. Child, what's wrong with you? And sometimes I would hear them gossiping about me behind my back, like, why is she so stupid that she wants to do
Oh,
this?
wow, come
And
on.
so growing up with that, like, how can I not believe that other people who are around me, my peers, are talking about me that way?
Yeah.
Like, how can you not think that, Like, and that's
Well, and to that extent, I totally agree. Yeah, that reminds me of something I said in the last episode, which was when I was like a kid, my mom thought I threw a guitar at her, like tried to kill her with a guitar. I broke a guitar, an acoustic guitar on a wall that she was like 2 feet away, and I knew I was gonna hit the wall. I wasn't gonna hit her. Anyways, that was held over me for so long afterwards, to the point to where like I would come home from school and then like mom would be on the phone with someone that she hadn't talked to in a while. She's like, "Oh, y mi hijo el otro día," and then I just hear her say, "I'm like, you fucking kidding me?" And then even like years later, like anytime the story would come up, it would be led by "you tried to kill me." I'm like, really? Like you're just gonna throw it out there like that? Like I get that it looks scary to you, but your husband tried maybe to kill you more times than I ever did. And that's painful to say because I love my parents, but it
yeah.
is what it is. Like it's a reality. No, he didn't. He never tried to kill her, but he was an alcoholic, drunken alcoholic. Before he got sober, because he had some like back issues, heart issues, he started taking painkillers. And I'm pretty sure he was told not to take them together, but I don't know if he understood completely. There was still like a little bit of a language barrier, although he spoke English pretty well. Just like some things were misunderstood, I'm sure. But in those instances is when he got really, really bad, where like he was just punching people and like getting into fights with my mom, with us if we were trying to get in the middle of it, neighbors. They weren't getting in the middle of it, like neighbors at parties and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can relate in that way. I got off topic from that.
No.
But
And the thing with what your mom said and with what my parents are saying, it's like, you raised me. You knew this was gonna happen, right? With the way that you were going? Like, why didn't you learn the lessons with your family to not do these things or to not it's like they forget that they were once children with such heavy shame. That once they do have children, it's almost like they're like, I can control this one. I can
Mm,
get this one on my side because they're cute and I made them.
yeah.
And it's almost like they're like molding you into the person they wish they were. Because I know my mom tried to do that with me, or like she tried to like give me a life that was, she was like, I want you to live very clean. I want you to be a very appropriate woman.
You
Close
are,
your
but
legs. Don't get a tattoo. Don't get piercings because if you
oh,
do, I'll skin them off of you and I'll rip them off with my
she.
own hands. Yeah.
Oh wow, damn. What if Adrian got one? Adrian, your brother.
Don't even.
It'd be like,
No.
don't let it happen again.
No. And the fact that, like, you know how I feel there. Like, I'm sure if he got a tattoo, she would be really angry. She would be like upset, but he would probably like stand up for himself and be able to say, like, Mom, fuck off, or something like that.
So yeah, he
Because
probably.
he's done that before. And the one time he did that, I lost it for my mom. I was just like, what? Like, he told her to F off, And like,
You're
I
like,
was like,
how?
how is he alive? How is he allowed back in the house? And I look back at it and I'm like, if I fucking did that, I would probably be kicked out, or I would be like, don't talk to me. We're not, family anymore. Like, that's my fear. And the fact
Mhm.
that that's my fear and something that, you know, it seems huge, but looking at it from like an observer's point of view, I'm like, if my family truly loved me, they should be able to receive criticism when it's brought to them. And the fact that they aren't is just kind of like you guys got a lot of growing to do. And the fact that I'm the child having to tell them that is just very interesting.
Yeah.
And like, when we have kids, like I'm going to be looking forward to that because it's just like, little observer, what do you see in me? Like, tell me what's wrong with me, your mom. Yeah. I feel like I would be like that with her kids. I would want them to be like, hey, if I'm doing something that doesn't feel right to you, like, let me explain to you why we're doing this.
I will say, I feel like with my little nephew, what I'm noticing, because he's almost 3 right now, I'm noticing he knows how cute he is, and he knows how to manipulate you if you allow to not see past his bullshit. But then there's moments where you can see real vulnerability and emotions start popping up. So in those moments, it's definitely like, oh, I did something that made him feel really bad about what he's doing. And depending on the situation, maybe I'll be like, hey, it's okay, or I'll try to talk to him, and be like, well, this is why we don't do this, and it's okay. But I do start seeing that guidance is starting to be needed more in how you react to something as a parent, where
Mhm.
they're not going to necessarily tell you, but you have to be the observer and kind of like notice what they're going through. So yeah, it's just interesting that you're talking about that. I'm sure in a couple years it's going to be more of like, they're going to be like, but why do we do that? And then even when you repeat something, it might be like, I keep saying like a lot, it might just sound like damn, I forgot what I was talking about. The kid. Um, yeah, we don't have to have kids yet.
No,
No,
no.
that's what I'm noticing with my nephew too. I'm like, I don't know if I want to have one of you just yet. Like, you're cool, dude. You're great, even, but just not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I mean, given the things that, I love that we're working on ourselves, trying to like almost mentally prepare ourselves for like kids, at least get rid of not get rid, but work on the parts that we know are going to hurt our kids. Like looking at it now, I'm like, well, there's a risk. And like the physical implications of someone getting pregnant is like, it's scary. There's like preeclampsia. There's so many conditions you can get like as a pregnant, healthy woman. Even if you're not predisposed to diabetes and heart issues, like pregnancy itself is like fucking scary,
Yeah, not
traumatizing.
not to mention any mishaps that can happen at the hospital or wherever you choose to have
Yeah.
pregnancy. But yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen to your body during it.
And there are things that you have as a pregnant person, like if you are pregnant, like pregnant women out there, you have certain symptoms that where, things just come up because you're pregnant, like the swollen feet or like, and or like swollen limbs and things like that. And those are considered normal pregnancy symptoms. But the thing is it could also be a symptom of like some of those conditions that will kill you when you give birth. And people don't get them tested often, or they're ignored constantly by gynecologists and doctors and ER doctors. They're like, no, it's part of pregnancy. And then like months later, the woman's dead because of something that doctor missed. Because simply they're like, they're just a woman. They're just exaggerating. They're just so sensitive. Or like, even a minor thing like when I was getting my IUD replaced, like I was getting it at a different clinic than where I first went to. And at the new clinic, I thought it was more like understanding, or in a way more high end, because it went through my, insurance, and you had to pay full price. So I'm just like, maybe they're better, than the nonprofit ones I've been going to.
Mhm.
Significantly different. I went there, and it's one of
Different in a bad way? Or?
in a bad way.
Oh, okay.
Like they weren't listening to me, or it felt like they were kind of like just saying like, well, you're a woman, so like these things happen, you can take the pain. And then like one of the things, it's during my first IUD insertion, they offered anesthesia. Actually, they didn't offer, they just went for it. They're like, oh, we're gonna put a little local anesthetic because when we clamp it up in there, it's gonna hurt a lot. They clamp your cervix to stretch it open to.
Well, they clamp the actual cervix?
Yes.
I just thought it was. Oh man.
That's what I thought too.
I
I was just like, you just shove it in there and stretch it into
you
a
just
T.
kind of
like the strings are supposed to pull, and I just thought that's how it was inserted, the IUD. But they actually have to clamp the cervix open, and when you do that, it's like you're opening up for like, it's literally a contraction, because that's how contraction happens when you're giving birth. The cervix has to come open, I'm assuming, based off the videos and the shitty sex education I've got.
I didn't even get that good of a sex ed.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
I was just like, penis. Literally.
I'll tell you a story about that.
Okay.
But anyway, so they offer the anesthetic, and then they just put in the anesthetic that first time, and no big deal. I was just like, okay, I was fine the next day. And yeah, I was in pain, but that's because, a new thing is in there. That's understandable, and it has hormones, and it's, it's going through the process. So they told me all of those warnings when I was at the nonprofit. But at this new one, which I thought was higher end, or at least, because it wasn't a nonprofit, I was like, okay, maybe they're more advanced, because they had the name advanced in their name, but they were not advanced. And
that usually just means expensive.
Probably, yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
No, and then so she was like, they were explaining the procedure to me, which I knew, and I'm just kind of like, they're like, yeah, we're going to open up the cervix, we're going to insert it, and then we're going to, take out your old IUD, and then we're going to insert the new one, and then yada, yada. I'm just kind of like, okay, and then I'm like, oh, at what point do you guys put the anesthetic, and they're like, oh, you don't need an anesthetic. You're a big girl. You can handle it.
Oh, even the way
you can handle the pain. She's like, you're a woman. You got this. And it's like, I shouldn't have to go through that pain because you think I deserve to go through that pain. Because that's also why depersonalization is such a big thing with me, and like why other women, I think a lot of other women have it, because it's like you go through these medical procedures and people tell you like, oh, no big deal, you can take the pain, and you make your mind think that it's normal to go through that pain. And people may think like, oh good, mind over matter, that should be the thing. These holistic bitches are like, you should be able to take the pain, it's no big deal. And it's like, it is a big deal, because you're like practicing your manly medical information there, because you're saying I deserve less comfort when I'm going through these painful procedures. simply because you think I'm a woman who can handle the pain.
Yeah.
And I think that's stupid because it's like, what if I can't handle the pain? What if I start having a fucking panic attack in the middle of the procedure when you're inside my coochie with that clamp in there, and I start thinking I'm gonna run off the table? How am I gonna take that thing off in the middle of a procedure with a fucking panic attack? And you're supposed to tell me, "Oh, you're a big girl. You could have taken the pain." The fuck,
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I never have to go like, I don't ever have to worry about something like that.
yeah,
That's the part that's kind of messed up.
that is a part that's messed up. I'm kidding.
I mean,
No,
it
but
is.
the thing is that, like, I feel like men's comfort is taken more into consideration. Because
Yeah.
even things like Viagra and stuff like that, that's covered, no big deal, without question. But for us, it's like, it's, they have
Wait,
to,
it's covered?
yeah,
Like under insurance?
yeah.
If you want to ask your doctor for Viagra, you can get it under your insurance plan.
If you require Viagra, yes.
Oh, okay. Why would you require Viagra?
EDD,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, but okay, I mean, maybe this is stupid to say, but like if it don't work anymore, is that bad of a thing? I don't know.
No, but
To
that's
each
a,
their own, I guess.
yeah, but that's the thing though. Men's ego is more supported in the medical field than women's comfort and pain.
Hmm.
Because in addition to like her not wanting to give me anesthesia, I then confronted the nurse practitioner, and I asked her like, "You guys aren't gonna offer me anesthesia?" They're like, "Do you want it?" And I'm like, and I settled, and I was just like, you know what? Let's try it without it. And it was fucking painful. It did hurt, but looking back at it, like, yeah, I could have taken that pain, but that doesn't matter because if no one had told me that pain existed, I would have lost my shit. I would have been so mad. And I
Yeah.
would have been like,
Because they wouldn't have told you unless you mentioned it, right?
yeah. And they wouldn't have told me if I hadn't been properly educated by the nonprofit telling me that I was going to get clamped. And so there's just that exclusion of information of stuff that you're going to go through that pisses me off because people think like, oh no, they're just too sensitive. Don't tell them.
Well,
So
I would maybe understand not telling them if you're taking every precaution for them to not feel it.
Yeah.
Like if like in a surgery they're putting you out, you're not gonna know exactly what they do. You really don't need to know everything. But if you're gonna be awake and you're gonna be feeling these things and going through it with them, like you need to be aware. Yeah, I see. I mean, I had seen your point before too, but that kind of made it make more sense in my head than it did before in a way.
yeah.
Like it made sense before, but like it just I can feel exactly what you're saying now.
Yeah, and it's the fact that other women continue this cycle making other women feel like you can take the pain because I took the pain, so it shouldn't be a big deal for you. And I hate that because it's like we're all different. Like for example, I'm barely like finding out that I have like an hormonal issue before my period, like PMDD symptoms. I'm not officially diagnosed, so I'm not gonna say I have it. But like the feelings I have before my period when I was a teenager, and I forgot all about it since I've had my IUD since I was 20. So like, after I turned 20 and I had that IUD, I forgot all about those memories. I forgot all about what I felt before I had the IUD because I was finally in a state of feeling like I'm controlled. My emotions are okay. I'm not crazy. Like I'm good.
Oh,
like I could focus so much more on other stuff. And then but with the PMDD concept there, it's like I have these enraging feelings of just wanting to hurt everything and everyone around me because I think everyone else is trying to get me and out to get me. And that's not normal, and it should be something that should be diagnosed early on or like at least seen. But the fact is that I was so used to being emotionally in pain because of my depersonalization, derealization, that I didn't pay attention to those symptoms thinking that they were wrong. I just thought, oh, everyone else is going through a hormone issue because we're all adolescents. We're all in puberty. But the thing I didn't know that is that I had psychological issues compared to my peers who did not show these same things, who did not express these same thoughts as I did. And I would ask them like, oh yeah, that makes me want to hurt people. And then they're like, what? And then I'm like, just kidding.
Yeah, that's funny, right?
But I never hurt anybody or never wanted to, and I don't ever plan on to, and I don't want to. I know I'm capable of it, and I know humans are capable of it. But the fact that I choose not to is just, part of my willpower and part of my, critical thinking, knowing what's right and wrong. But there are people out there who consciously think or who might be in the same boat thinking, these are my thoughts, therefore I must act on them and go on and hurt people.
Well, because, I mean, with intrusive thoughts and a lot of these things, I feel like if you're able to discipline your mind and, kind of like stay on track and be like, hey, like find a way to tell yourself these are intrusive thoughts. Like, let's try to not let them capture me completely. Doing that for long enough could probably be beneficial, right? But I'm also getting the feeling that there's certain things that no matter how disciplined you are, like the hormonal issues are so hard to actually change the way it has you feeling. Just like when you get an adrenaline spike, like it's not going to be very easy to not feel what it does to your body and like what the ramifications are that happen inside of you, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And so with the hormonal stuff, you don't really realize it because you're like saturated in hormones.
Yeah.
You're like expecting hormones. You're like, okay. But at the same time, it's like what's changing your mood and like making you go from like point A to point B. Like I would be so triggered by just stupid little things at school. And now I look at the things I'm triggered by. I'm like, this is so mundane. Like like a few weeks ago when it was happening, or when I was like, I guess in the middle of the episode week, I went to a restaurant and I was expecting to get food there, but they were closed and I didn't know that, they didn't announce it online. So I showed up and I was just like, okay, they're closed. No big deal. And then the owner came up to me, he's like, oh, we're closed, not even in a bad tone, nothing negative. The only negative thing was that it was closed, but it wasn't something I was going to go ape shit about.
And you already kind of knew it was closed, right?
And then I drove away and I was crying because it was closed. And because someone told me it was closed, like just because of that, like.
Well, the act of, I would have a weird thing too, where like just the other day I was at Costco. And I was with my family and I was pushing the cart because my family stayed behind to pick up some food that we ordered and I was going to go take it to the car. And I went through like this little area. There was like two ways to go, to the left or to the right. And then when I went to the right, like a car kind of went in front and like parked there. And like I was just waiting to see if I could make it through because the opening was slim. And in my head, I was like, okay, I'm not going to make it through. I have to lug this whole thing back the other way and go to the left over there. And as I was starting to do that, the cart guy's like, you can't go through there. You can't go through there. You're not going to fit. You have to go this way. And that irritated me so much more. Like, I already knew that. And he did it in a tone that was like, kind of like, I think he thought I was like trying to like rush in there when I was taking my time. And he was like almost thinking I was going to hit the car. So I get it. Later on, when I brought the car back, he actually took it off my hands because it was kind of far. He's like, I can get it, man. And then he's like, have a nice day. Thank you. So he was really nice about it, but it was just like, it just got under my skin so bad.
Yeah.
To be told something I already know.
It does get under my skin a lot. So like if that had happened to me, I probably would have been sobbing 2 minutes later.
Oh, no.
I'll be like, he spoke to me bad. Like I would have been so mad.
Well,
and, like,
that's the difference between you and I, because I just started getting super angry and then I got into like a little stupid argument with my dad.
Oh.
It's like, it happens that like little things like that trigger me, but they trigger me to where I just like, I want to be destructive and I don't care who I throw it at. I don't know why. I don't throw it at random people, but I'll throw it at the people I care about the most for some weird reason.
Because you've seen your dad do that.
Maybe. I guess so. I mean, I guess I don't feel... I've gone into explosive arguments and what could possibly be considered fights with almost everyone in my family. So maybe that since that boundary has been crossed, like it's kind of hard to not go there, or to get in that mindset. But yeah, it's definitely better than it used to be, for sure.
Yeah. I would hold back a lot with my family just because I knew what would happen if I exploded. But a lot of times they would try to talk to me. They're like, "What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong." It's like I'm trying to like calm myself down internally so that I don't say something that I'm thinking that I know. My brain's thinking this way and I know it's not correct, so I don't want to tell you. And the more that people push me to like tell me what's wrong, like I would probably just say it just to get them to F off. Or I would say something else to like distract them from it, something even different or worse, you know? Or like one day I was just sad and upset about something that happened at school. And like my daddy's like, Getty, and is like, "What's wrong? Why are you acting like this?" You know, he was just like uncomfortable with the fact that I was showing any emotion that day.
Mm.
And like with me and my dad, like, you know, I try not to show any emotion because he's my dad and I'm supposed to be strong around him. And then now I show more emotion. You've seen me be sassy to my dad.
Yeah. Well, you would be sassy without emotion
That's
back
true.
then, from what you've told me.
Yeah.
Like if he's like, "What are you doing?" in Spanish, obviously, and obviously he could see you're just writing, you'd just be like, "Cocaine."
Drugs.
But there's no
No drugs.
emotion there. Oh yeah, there's no drugs.
Yeah.
But you're not really necessarily. Well, I don't know. Was there emotion there? That same sassiness.
And I would say no, not the same playful one I have now. I would just basically use it to deflect so that I wouldn't have to explain what I was thinking. Because most of the time I was like, it isn't healthy for my parents to hear this. Because I don't, like, I know it's manipulative, but like, I did it so that I would manipulate them into thinking something else about me so that I wouldn't have to explain the things that were actually happening to me. Because I didn't want to worry them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to like bother explaining it because it would make me feel like shit thinking that, oh, I raised this kid the best I could and she still turned out fucked up. Like, what did I do? And then the fact that they would find a way to blame themselves instead of helping me would probably like drive me mad. So because I thought that far ahead, I would just be like, "Oh no, it's just my period, Dad. It's okay." And then my dad would be like, you know, like, "Bye."
Yeah, he's
period.
like, "Said enough."
Enough, you know. Or like my tia, she would be like, "Why are you sad? Why do you look that way?" And then she would poke at it a lot more, and I'd just be like, "Oh no, I'm distracted because I have this big assignment coming up." So, you know, it's just that. And instead of explaining to them like, "Well, I feel like you guys hate me and I don't know how to handle it. So I'm just sitting here moping, trying to distract myself with a book and a drawing because I can't handle life right now."
I'm sorry for that. That reminds me so much of Turning Red, the Disney movie that just came out. We just watched it too.
Yes.
Like literally, she gets caught by her mom drawing. Well, I mean, your drawings were different, but she just draws that guy that everyone was crushing on.
Yes.
And her mom goes and like snitches her out.
Oh God,
that's so bad.
That's embarrassing. Anyway, so because I was trying to avoid that embarrassment of like trying to show my feelings, like I would find a way to like deflect it or change it to something else. Or like, you know, like one time I was just sitting in the bathroom crying and they're like, "What's wrong?" And I'm just kind of like, "They're allergies. Someone threw sand in my face and I fucking hate them." And then like they're like, "Who threw sand in your face?" And I'm just like, "I don't know. I couldn't see that." Like and then they're like, "Okay."
You're just like, "What the hell?"
And then
happened?
I'm just like, "I'm just gonna blow my nose, okay?" And they're like, "Okay," you know. And I would just like, you know, get myself together. I'm like, no more crying on the toilet, only in the shower.
Oh no.
I would sit in the shower, on the floor of the shower, crying for 20 minutes sometimes, and I thought that was normal.
I'm sorry. You laughed too. You gave me a permission.
Mental health.
Oh man.
I would say this is us honestly talking about it. It's like I look back at it as a teenager. I'm like,
Yeah. I mean, it's like I just want to hug you and like cry with you. Like I'm not someone that has ever cried very much for many things, and in the last couple of years, I find myself like getting emotional with movies and stuff, and I just allow myself to be, and it's easier. And so I would just want to. It's gonna sound corny, but like hug you and just like let you cry if you were thinking about that, and just kind of like heal each other.
No, yeah. And you broke the barrier with me where I wouldn't let people touch me when I was crying that much.
Yeah.
And like so like, they would hug me from behind and like, like this, but like I wouldn't let them hug me like whole wise, because it would make me feel like I was too vulnerable. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. It feels weird.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
I'm thankful,
yeah,
obviously you came into my life and helped me.
I'm thankful too. I mean, I can't say that enough. Well, people probably think we have said it enough
Yeah.
by now. But we're getting to about an hour, which I want to kind of bring it to an end. But I did want to ask one more question. This was a question that we had by an Instagram user.
Hmm.
If you're not following us on Instagram, feel free to follow us. It's just Comfort is a Coffin. YouTube as well. Please subscribe. Enjoy the video podcast. I feel like I enjoy the video podcast more than the audio podcast. Not of our own necessarily, but just in general. I'm a video podcast guy. Maybe you're out there and you don't know it yet, but try it out. The question is, it was brought up to us by someone on our Instagram page. I'm sure we could put their name like down in the video or something, unless you have it with you.
Oh, I'm trying to bring it up, but it looks like the internet's a little shoddy.
It's okay. I'm sure they'll understand. The question, though, I'm going to be paraphrasing a little bit. It's a two-part question, and I think it'd be good to answer, especially with what you just shared with us. Their question was, do we enjoy sharing? Like, do we get anything out of sharing these types of experiences from our past? And then the second question was, do we find it easier to share with loved ones, family members, acquaintances, or with strangers? I don't know if you'd want to answer one of those first. I know that sharing helps me feel better and analyze myself. Even I'm not really rewatching these apart from the editing, but once I edit it, post it up, and everything, I feel good. Sharing a lot of the things that I haven't shared with anyone except for you, I feel good throwing it out there. It does bring this sense of reflection to me that I enjoy.
I do like sharing with people, and I want to share with more people. I mean, this is a lot for me to share on, which is good because like I always wanted kind of like a platform to share all my emotional damage and to kind of see if like some people out there could at least like resonate with the fact that like although it wasn't that I didn't turn out that bad, I still need to acknowledge that the things I went through were not okay to go through that alone or the way that it happened, like I
Yeah.
want people to acknowledge that because it makes me feel better to know that like at least I helped someone kind of realize that because it's like, that clenching I've mentioned, it's like, there's like two types of clenchings from what I realized. There's the clenching in your mouth and the clenching in your butthole. The clenching of the butthole is when you finally like release it and like feel like I can feel things. I deserve better than the way I've been like holding myself so uptight and like being so hard on myself. The mouth one
You're holding in.
is
You're like, yeah, you're not letting things get expressed.
yeah, or like how people, say that corny thing of like, being able to speak your truth. Like that to me, like now that I've like spoken more about it and been like more chatty about the things that I went through, it's like it really does feel like your mouth's been clenching and you're just like finally able to say it out loud, and like I still have shame from like sharing so much because like if I had shared these things with my parents or like if they see these podcasts, like I'm almost scared they're gonna like be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Sure.
We don't remember it like that.
And even if they don't remember it like that, they might be sad.
Yeah.
I feel like that, and more than anger, like my family would probably feel sad if I mentioned something where I feel emotional about it and they have no idea or had no idea.
Yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure they know.
Yeah. And so with that, it's like I want other people to be able to share that. I don't want them to feel sorry for me. I want them to think like, oh shit, I feel like I know someone who's going through something. Like I would want them to talk to me about it more. I would want to hear them because every time I meet someone, I'm always trying to figure out like, what damage did you go through for me to want to get to know you more? For me to want like the people who are around you that are the nicest, sweetest, gentle people. I feel like I can tell how much trauma they've been through because I've only really met kind, loving people who have been through the ringer.
They've been through some stuff, yeah.
Some heavy stuff. And like I meet them and then they're just so like, once they're willing to share, I'm just kind of like the waterworks just come out from them. And I just like want to see them so raw and like
Yeah.
be able to
I
feel safe enough to
yeah.
share that with me.
I think it's a privilege when people feel safe enough to share with you. And in the last couple years, a lot more people have been opening up to me, to us, and like letting us know how they feel about things because they feel comfortable with us. And that's something that makes me feel emotional because I know that because of our sharing, it's allowing them to share and it's allowing them to kind of heal in some ways that they didn't realize maybe they had to, or do go through like just, I don't know, really reconcile with what happened. Because that's one thing about sharing a lot of this stuff. A lot of stuff while we're talking, I don't remember in the moment, and then it comes up, and then I'm like, oh wow, like I had forgotten about that. It's been a while, and then it makes me really. It's like whatever when I was younger, my inner child, if it didn't really emotionally heal or emotionally grasp the concepts as I'm talking about it later within that week, like I'll be feeling more of it and I'll be like, wow, well, at least I'm coming to some kind of acceptance of it all, even if I don't know everything, and even if I don't know what the next step is in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the second part of the question, what
Oh,
was that? I'm
yes.
sorry.
No, no, it was. Do you feel it's easier to strange with to
To share with
strange with
strangers.
shares, to share with strangers or with acquaintances, loved ones?
I feel like it kind of is because I get an outsider's perspective and people who may not have been able to share with someone in their family because, it's not like I was going to talk to my parents about my depressive stuff because I knew for a fact that they didn't really believe depression was a real thing.
Yeah,
Recently, I've been told that they now understand it more, but the fact that they might have seen it in me as a kid kind of surprises me that they haven't absorbed that in me. But I'm still waiting to tell them that. But the fact is, I'm able to do it here and on Instagram talking about my issues
yeah,
because I know for a fact that there are people out there who deserve to be heard in that way or deserve to put themselves out there because someone told them it wasn't correct. Someone told them like, "Oh, you have nothing to complain about." And I hate that cuz it's like I wish I had nothing to complain about. I wish I didn't feel this way inside. I don't want to have these thoughts. But the fact that someone would make me feel bad about it because of the way they've seen my life, it's like, well, I've only shown you what you want to be shown.
yeah,
I've only shown like the like fruitful side of kid in me because I didn't want you to see me this way because I knew for a fact you wouldn't be able to handle it well enough to be able to talk to me about it properly. Because it's like, you know, I want people to be able to share and talk to me about their emotions, but I'm able to do that more with strangers because they and I both know we don't have the same consequences if we shared this with our families. So with being strangers, kind of like, an AA or something, or like with
yeah,
any of those groups, it's like you don't have those same people as main characters in your life. They're not affecting you.
yeah,
So that's why it's easy for me to share with strangers because it's like, and I've met strangers out there, even when I was in college, I would like tell them, like, my friend did this to me once. And like, I don't know why, they would just get me talking and they would get talking. And then they would be like, that's really messed up. What happened to you? And I'm like, was it? They're like, I would have lost it if that happened to me. And I'm
yeah,
like, and then you get an outsider's perspective because now you're like, have I really been living bad? Like, is my life bad? Like, you don't want to think that way.
yeah.
You don't want to feel that way. You don't want to think your life is bad. But some things are just not the best conditions for everyone, Like, all,
Yeah, especially if there's something going on in your own family where you absolutely cannot share certain things because of the repercussions that'll come from sharing. Like I can see for a lot of people it being harder to share with loved ones than with strangers. I love that. I agree. The stranger's perspective. I think that's necessary. A lot of the times I don't realize um like the effect things have had on me until I mention it to someone. They're like, "Oh man, that was messed up." I'm like, "Yeah, oh yeah,
yeah, like
yeah, that
some of the
was."
stuff you went through, you describe it to me. I'm like, babe.
I mean, vice versa. Some I'm like, "Damn, we're both on a good one." As far as I mean, I agree. I will say, um, it just sometimes I don't want to tire my family out, like with the same stuff. Like recently, I was with them and they were asking me. They were talking a lot in the car. We were like driving somewhere and they were talking a lot in the car. And noticed I was kind of quiet. I didn't have migraine, but I was light sensitive, so I was just trying to chill. It was a bright day. Forgot sunglasses, and they were like, "Hey, why are you so quiet?" I'm like, honestly, I don't think you guys are interested in anything I have to say. I don't mean it in a bad way. I just like all I'll probably talk about is the podcast and my self healing, and I don't think you guys want to hear it. And then they're like, oh, okay. They didn't really ask more, and I don't think I hurt their feelings. So there's that. Like sometimes it's just easier to not share so much. But I will say that depending on what I'm looking for through the sharing. I mean, if I'm looking for support from someone through the sharing, then it probably is easier to mention it to a loved one and like let them know, "Hey, this is what I need right now," before I even tell you what I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
I haven't really had that type of conversation with my family, but I do feel like in that circumstance where if I was in a place where I need emotional support and I need to tell you about something that's been going on, then it's probably easier with someone I know, because I know that regardless of what it is, even if it's like maybe a little wrong, they might be willing to be like, okay, well, hey, this is what we can do. We're here for each other, whatever.
Yeah.
Not to say that it would be wrong, but just we find ourselves in interesting places all the time.
Yeah. I will say though that I know I can tell like my sister certain things, but I know it's like probably hard for her because in her head she's like, I'm your big sister. I was supposed to protect you
Oh
from
yeah.
that. And like, I feel like if I do talk about like a lot of the stuff like that, like I feel like it might like scare her, and like seeing myself talk about therapy, it might scare her into thinking like that she has to change. And there are things I wish she would go to, like, you know, to a psychologist like I did. Um, but it's like I want her to like have that journey by herself to like figure out what she needs and treat herself better. In addition to my brother too, like they're both great siblings and we've always tried to have each other's back. Um, but I do see them like taking their time, kind of like learning what they need to learn and like learning like how all came to be. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like Bruno from Encanto,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just like, my sister in my parents' eyes turned out good in terms of like the career stuff and like being like really good at her job. And then my brother, he like finished school really fast. And like, so my parents were kind of like, okay, we don't have to spend so much money on his education, because my brother thought that my parents would be like really upset with me and my sister for taking so long in school. And, he would only see that perspective. But now that he's out of school and now he's at my parents' house and he's dating and he's kind of becoming his own little adult, like, I'm proud of him for kind of like growing, because like I've seen him like almost look kind of traumatized learning new things about me and the world, that he was just like, that happened to you?
Oh yeah.
It's like he heard about, like, I did kind of briefly tell him about, one of the sexual assaults, and he was just kind of like, I'm gonna go kill him or I'm gonna go do this. And I'm just like, thank you for that. But the thing is that I want nothing to happen. I want to feel like I'm safe here in my community only. And if anything was to happen, like a fight or something, it's gonna be my fight. And it's gonna be my knuckles getting bloody, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got away from the person and everything. And like the trauma still kind of there, but because I've been around people who loved me and healed me, and like they listened to me when I was like losing it, and they told me, like, maybe you should go to the therapist because you're having PTSD symptoms. Just having those small suggestions, people telling me like, maybe you should try this, like I would look at it as like a blessing in a way, because I'm like, if they think I'm freaking out and I've been my worst around them, then they're probably right. They're probably correct. Or like my little brother, he'd be like, no, that's not normal. Like, he's like, you shouldn't be tolerating that. I'm like, you're right.
Did you ever mention him something about that I might have done? Where he's like, no, he can't be doing that.
I would present it as an example of something that he was currently doing.
Oh, okay.
Kind of
Oh,
like as a
okay.
lesson.
Hmm.
Like, like for example, with the whole situation where he, his girlfriend went out and he didn't go out with her because she was out with her girls and he was waiting for her at her apartment.
Oh, he got a little
And he got
jealous.
upset
Yeah.
and jealous. He's just like, I don't like that you went out with them. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then and this was a big moment where I knew he was mature, where I knew he was growing, because he came to me, his sister, messaging saying like, am I the asshole for doing this? And I said, yes, you are the asshole. Let me tell you why. And I was so thankful he came to me, because like at least I know like he trusts me enough to like tell him about these things, because I was willing to be trusting enough to tell him about my things. And I was telling him, I'm like, the way you acted is short-term boyfriend behavior, not long-term boyfriend behavior. So if you want to be a short-term boyfriend with her, you can keep acting like that. You can be acting completely jealous and making her sad, making her cry. But soon she's going to wake up and leave your ass, because she's going to know there's someone out there who will not fucking do that shit and knows better than to treat her like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told him, like, if this is what you want and you want it to be short term, you can keep going this path. But you are grown and you're going to make mistakes. It happens. People get jealous. It's normal. How you handle it is a different story.
Yeah.
And then after you make the mistake and you're willing to learn about it and kind of like understand that you're still new to relationships, that shows growth. And I was very proud of him too. Like, at least like, no, like, maybe I should ask my sister about this.
Yeah,
Because she's always told me how it is, right?
I love that. That reminds me of a TikTok I saw, which maybe we'll bring it up in the next episode. I kind of want to try something out in terms of reacting to some TikToks that I think would be fun. So, well, maybe we should say goodbye for that.
Yeah.
On
Thank
this
you guys
episode.
for being here this long. I appreciate you.
Yeah, if you are here this long, we appreciate you. Also, no one has claimed the shirt from the first episode.
No, huh?
So the offer's still up. If you, let's say it's Bruno, if you type Bruno into an email at comfortisacoffin, comfortisacoffin@gmail.com, send us an email, subject Bruno, tell us the size shirt you want, you'll get a shirt from us with our logo and everything. Just cause.
Yeah, give a little shout out.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Thank you, Carmen Wrights from our Instagram. He's been very kind and like sharing our program and
been very nice, very cool,
very interactive. And also Ricardo, he's been giving us compliments,
which we will probably have on the podcast soon. Ricardo's a friend of ours. If you haven't heard of a band called Modern Traditions, they're called Mod Trad. They go by. Check them out on Spotify, YouTube. I'm sure we're gonna have them on the podcast one of these days, pretty soon.
Easy listening music.
Yeah, very chill, very chill. Love that guy. Thank you to everyone. If you guys want to support us, subscribe, listen, follow, interact with us on Instagram. You can always find us. If you guys ever have any questions, or if you guys are ever interested in coming on yourselves, let us know. It's bye for this time. I can't say it right. Have a good one.